In the previous Part 1 video, you watched how Johnny Depp stepped in to help a young girl, Sonia, in her fight against cancer. But just when it seemed like the battle was won, a new challenge emerged, one that would test his courage and determination even further. Stay tuned for Part 2 of this heartfelt story, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if this story inspires you. Johnny Depp made his way through the quiet sanitarium corridors, the sterile lights illuminating the path to Sonia's room. His mind had been preoccupied with solicitude about her condition throughout the day, despite the critical movables he'd attended. As he neared her room, he saw Miss Abigail stepping out, a tired smile on her face. "Depp," she saluted him vocally. "Sonia's been asking for Captain Jack all day. She's been veritably weak and sleeping on and off since the surgery, but she will be so happy to see you." Johnny jounced gratefully and entered the room. Sonia lay resting in her sanitarium bed, the corsair chapeau from their movie night slightly askew on her head. Her face was pale against the white sanitarium wastes, but her eyes cheered when she saw him. The golden coin he'd given her rested on the bedside table, catching the dim evening light. "How are you feeling, love?" Johnny asked gently, settling into the president beside her bed. Sonia's usual bright smile sounded simulated as she admitted, "I've a terrible headache, Captain Jack, and it's hard to breathe duly." Her voice was weak, slightly above a tail. Johnny tried to assure her, suggesting these might be normal post-surgery symptoms, but commodity about her labored breathing and cadaverous complexion touched off a deeper concern within him. He maintained a calm surface, not wanting to scarify her, but his instincts told him commodity was not right. "Well, you've been through quite an adventure moment," he said, forcing a smile. "It's normal to feel a bit rough after such a big battle. But you are strong." Flashback? A true corsair. Sonia jounced weakly, her eyes no way leaving Johnny's face. "Will you stay with me for a while, Captain Jack?" she asked, her voice slightly audible. "Of course, love," Johnny replied, reaching out to hold her small hand. "I am not going anywhere." Despite her egregious prostration, Sonia reached out to clinch Johnny, her small arms belting around him with surprising strength. "Thank you for everything, Captain Jack," she rumored, her voice thick with emotion and gratefulness for all he'd done. Mid-grasp, Sonia suddenly started coughing oppressively. The cough was deep and concerning, rattling her small frame. Her breathing came decreasingly labored and irregular, the sound harsh and shocking in the quiet room. Johnny's expression shifted from concern to alarm as he realized this was not normal post-operative recovery. He gently helped Sonia lie back against her pillows while reaching for the nanny call button, his movements calm but critical. "It's all right, love," he soothed, trying to keep the solicitude from his voice. "We will get someone to help you feel more." A nanny hastened in, snappily assessing Sonia's condition. Seeing the inflexibility of her symptoms, the labored breathing, the patient cough, and Sonia's egregious torture, she incontinently paged Dr. Marvey for an exigency discussion. Johnny stood back, allowing the nanny to work, but keeping his eyes fixed on Sonia. His mind contended with solicitude as he watched her struggle for breath, knowing this was far more serious than typical post-surgery discomfort. "Hang in there, Sonia," he muttered, further to himself than to her. "Help is on the way." The twinkles seemed to stretch endlessly as they awaited Dr. Marvey to arrive. Johnny paced the small room, his eyes zipping between Sonia and the door, willing the croaker to appear. He tried to maintain a calm demeanor for Sonia's sake. But inside, he was battling a rising drift of fear and helplessness. Marvey arrived instantly, his face serious as he began examining Sonia. He heeded to her breathing with his stethoscope, checked her vital signs, and reviewed her recent post-surgery maps. His expression grew decreasingly grave with each fleeting moment. The croaker asked Johnny and Miss Abigail, who had rushed in upon hearing the commotion, to step away for a moment. In low, critical tones, he verified their earlier fears. The cancer had spread further than originally detected during surgery. The detention and treatment before Johnny set up her had allowed it to advance significantly throughout her system. "I am sorry, Doctor," Marvey said, his voice heavy with remorse. "But our installation, while able to handle routine cancer cases, lacks the technical outfit, and Moxie demanded for such an advanced case. We may not be suitable to give the level of care Sonia needs." Johnny felt as if the bottom had dropped out from beneath him. He glanced at Miss Abigail, who had gone pale, her hand covering her mouth in shock. "What are you saying, Doctor?" Johnny asked, his voice slightly above a tail. "What does this mean for Sonia?" Marvy's expression was grave as he replied, "It means her condition is far more serious than we originally allowed. Without specialized treatment, her chances are not good." From her bed, Sonia had been watching their hushed discussion hardly. Though weak, her voice carried easily across the room as she asked the question that broke Johnny's heart. "Will I die?" Her small fingers gripped the Corsair coin tightly as she awaited an answer. Johnny's heart gripped at her words, but his resoluteness strengthened. He wouldn't let this be the end of Sonia's story. Before the croaker could respond, Johnny moved fleetly to her bedside, knowing he demanded to act snappily. "No, love," he said forcefully, kneeling beside her bed. "We have come too far to give up now. Rovers do not surrender." Flashback. His mind was formally forming a plan, flashing back to a connection that might save Sonia's life. Johnny turned to Miss Abigail, his voice steady despite the fermentation he felt outside. "Can you stay with Sonia for a moment? I need to make an important phone call." Miss Abigail jounced, moving to take Johnny's place at Sonia's bedside. Johnny gave Sonia's hand a reassuring squeeze before stepping out into the hallway. In the corridor, Johnny pulled out his phone and telephoned Dr. James Morrison, a largely reputed oncologist he'd met at a charity fete months agone. Morrison was known for treating putatively hopeless cancer cases among celebrities and had access to cutting-edge treatments not available in utmost hospitals. As the phone chimed, Johnny paced the hallway, his free hand running through his hair in agitation. When Dr. Morrison eventually answered, Johnny wasted no time in explaining Sonia's situation. "James, it's Johnny Depp," he said urgently. "I need your help. There is a little girl here with advanced cancer, and the original sanitarium cannot handle her case. I flash back you mentioning some experimental treatments at your installation." Dr. Morrison heeded precisely as Johnny outlined Sonia's condition, sometimes asking for clarification on specific details. "Whatever it costs," Johnny claimed, his voice carrying both authority and despair. "I will cover everything. We just need to move snappily." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Johnny held his breath, quietly willing Dr. Morrison to agree. Eventually, the oncologist spoke. "All right, Johnny. Bring her to my installation incontinently. I will have everything ready for her arrival. But I must advise you, the treatment is experimental and extremely precious." "Plutocrat isn't an issue," Johnny replied without vacillation. "We will be there as soon as possible. Thank you, James. You might be saving her life." As he ended the call, Johnny felt a blend of relief and nervous expectation. He had a plan now, a chance to save Sonia, but he knew the road ahead would be grueling and uncertain. Johnny returned to Sonia's room with renewed determination. He found her clinging to her Corsair coin, gashes still fresh on her cheeks, but her eyes filled with trust as she looked at him. "All right, First Mate Sonia," he said, slipping into his Jack Sparrow persona. "We've got a new adventure ahead of us. We're going to sail to a different harborage, where a veritably special croaker will help you fight this battle." Sonia's eyes widened with a blend of fear and excitement. "A new adventure?" she asked, her voice weak but curious. Johnny jounced, sitting on the edge of her bed. "That is right, love. We are going to a different sanitarium in another megacity. It's a bit far from then, which means you will be down from your orphanage musketeers for a while. But this is our stylish chance to make you feel more. What do you say? Are you up for it?" Sonia dithered for a moment, also jounced bravely. Aye, Captain," she rumored, managing a small smile. Kneeling beside her bed, Johnny spoke in his Jack Sparrow voice. "One further adventure, love, the bold one yet." His tone shifted to serious as he continued. "I need you to trust me one further time. This is not just chance. Us meeting was not just coexistence. We are meant to win this battle together." Someone of advanced power had put this in place. Miss Abigail watched the exchange with gashes in her eyes, moved by Johnny's fidelity and Sonia's unwavering faith in him. She snappily began gathering Sonia's many things, including the Corsair chapeau and coin, preparing for the transfer. "Depp," she said vocally. "I cannot thank you enough for all you are doing. But are you sure about this? The cost? The time?" Johnny cut her off gently. "Ms. Abigail, please. This is what needs to be done. Sonia deserves every chance we can give her." As they prepared for the transfer, Johnny coordinated with Dr. Morrison's platoon and the original sanitarium staff. Within hours, a medical transport was arranged, equipped to handle any extremities during the trip. As the nurses prepared Sonia for the trip, Johnny noticed her growing anxiety. He sat beside her, holding her hand. "Flashback, love," he said vocally. "You are the bold corsair I know, and I will be right there with you every step of the way." Sonia jounced, clinging her corsair coin tightly. "Promise you will not leave me, Captain Jack?" she asked, her voice small and alarmed. "I promise," Johnny replied solemnly. "We are in this together, First Mate Sonia. Now let's set passage for our coming great adventure." As they wheeled Sonia out of the room, Johnny felt a blend of stopgap and alarm. He knew the trip ahead would be delicate, but he was determined to see it through no matter what challenges lay ahead. The transfer was arranged with remarkable speed, thanks Morrison's intervention. A medical transport vehicle was prepared, equipped to handle any extremities during the trip. As they prepared to leave, Johnny claimed that Miss Abigail accompany them, knowing her presence would give fresh comfort and support for Sonia. The night air was cool as they loaded Sonia into the transport. Johnny helped her settle in, making sure she was as comfortable as possible. Sonia drifted in and out of sleep in the reverse, still wearing her corsair chapeau despite her egregious discomfort. As they drove through the night, the megacity lights faded behind them, replaced by the darkness of the open road. Johnny sat beside Sonia, holding her hand, while Miss Abigail sat across from them, her upset aspect now leaving the little girl's face. During a quiet moment, when Sonia had drifted off to sleep, Johnny commended in Miss Abigail about his passions. "It breaks my heart," he admitted vocally, watching Sonia sleep. "There are so numerous children out there like her, demanding help while people look away. However, I'd do it in a twinkle, if I could trade all my fame and plutocrat to save children like her." The sincerity in his voice moved Miss Abigail deeply. She reached over and gentled his hand, understanding that this experience had changed him profoundly. "At least you can help her," she rumored. And Johnny jounced, his eyes no way leaving Sonia's sleeping form. As the hours passed, Johnny set up himself reflecting on the extraordinary chain of events that had led to this moment. The spooked little girl clinging his leg outside the hostel sounded like a continuance agone. He came decreasingly convinced that their meeting was not bare coexistence, but a sign from an advanced power. Someone watching over Sonia, who had put him in her path at exactly the right moment. This consummation strengthened his resoluteness and faith in Sonia's recovery. Her survival formerly sounded miraculous, from her original strength in seeking help, to chancing him at that precise moment. Johnny quietly pledged to do whatever it took to see her through this battle, to give her the chance at life and adventure that every child deserves. The trip continued through the night, each afar bringing them closer to their last stopgap for Sonia's recovery. As the first light of dawn began to break on the horizon, Johnny felt a mixture of prostration and expectation. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he was committed to facing them alongside Sonia, determined to see her through to a brighter future. They arrived at Dr. Morrison's state-of-the-art installation just as dawn began to break. The ultra-modern structure rose impressively against the lightning sky, its windows flashing with pledge. Johnny felt a swell of stopgap as he peered at the installation, knowing that within its walls lay Sonia's stylish chance for survival. Dr. Morrison tête-à-tête saluted them at the entrance, his presence carrying both authority and compassion. He incontinently began assessing Sonia's condition while his platoon prepared for treatment. "Johnny," Dr. Morrison said, shaking his hand forcefully, "I am glad you made it safely. Let's get Sonia settled and also we can bandy the treatment plan." As the medical platoon precisely transferred Sonia from the transport to a sanitarium bed, Dr. Johnny noticed how small and fragile she looked against the stark white wastes. Her corsair chapeau had slipped off during the trip, and he gently placed it back on her head, earning a weak smile from the exhausted child. Once Sonia was settled in her room, Dr. Morrison pulled Johnny away to outline an aggressive treatment plan. He precisely explained each step and the pitfalls involved, his voice low and serious. "Johnny," Dr. Morrison said, his expression grave, "I want to be clear about this. The treatment is experimental and extremely aggressive. There are significant pitfalls involved, and the cost is astronomical. Are you absolutely sure you want to do?" Johnny's response was immediate and firm. "Whatever it costs," he stated without vacillation, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Let's get started incontinently." Dr. Morrison jounced admiringly at his fidelity, incontinently setting his platoon in stir. As the croaker left to make final medications, Johnny returned to Sonia's bedside, where Miss Abigail sat holding the little girl's hand. "How are you feeling, first mate?" Johnny asked gently, using his Jack Sparrow voice to bring a smile to Sonia's tired face. "Tired, Captain," Sonia replied weakly, "but ready for the coming adventure." Johnny smiled, his heart swelling with admiration for her frippery. "That is my girl," he said vocally. "Now the croakers are going to start helping you veritably soon. It might be a bit scary, but flashback, you are the bold corsair, I know." As the medical platoon began to prepare Sonia for her first round of treatment, Johnny felt a blend of stopgap and anxiety. He knew the road ahead would be grueling, but he was determined to stand by Sonia's side every step of the way, ready to face whatever storms lay ahead in their topmost adventure yet. Johnny sat with her, explaining gently that she would be under anesthesia for several days. He tried to make it sound like another grand adventure, though his heart pained at seeing her so frightened. "You see, love," he said, using his Jack Sparrow voice, "you're about to embark on a secret charge. The croakers are going to put you to sleep, and while you are featuring of grand adventures, they'll be fighting off the bad guys in your body." Sonia heated hardly, her eyes wide with the admixture of fear and seductiveness. "Will it hurt?" she asked in a small voice. Johnny squeezed her hand gently. "The croakers will make sure you are comfortable," he assured her, "and when you wake up, you will be one step closer to feeling better." "I will be right then when you wake up," he promised solemnly. Just like a captain staying for his first mate to return from a dangerous charge, his words brought a small smile to Sonia's tired face. "You." They participated one final clinch before the nursers came to take her. Sonia gripped her Corsair coin tightly in one hand while holding Johnny's hand with the other, drawing strength from both. As the nursers began to wheel Sonia down, she looked back at Johnny, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "I will make you proud, Captain Jack," she said, her voice slightly above a tail. Johnny maintained his countenance as Sonia was wheeled down, not letting his stalwart face slip until the treatment room doors closed behind her. Only also did he allow his shoulders to slack with the weight of his solicitude. Ms. Abigail, who had been watching quietly, placed a comforting hand on Johnny's shoulder. "She's in good hands," she said vocally, "and she has your strength to draw from." Johnny jounced, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "She's the strongest person I know," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "However, it's Sonia, if anyone can beat this." As they settled into the staying area, Johnny set up himself, reflecting on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them to this moment. He quietly renewed his pledge to Sonia, covenanting to do whatever it took to see her through this battle and give her the chance at life she merited. He came convinced their meeting was not bare coexistence, but a sign from an advanced power. Someone watching over Sonia, who put him in her path at exactly the right moment. As he sat there, the quiet hum of the sanitarium around him, Johnny felt a sense of peace marshland over him. He closed his eyes, offering a silent prayer for Sonia's recovery. "I do not know if you are hearkening," he rumored, "but thank you for bringing Sonia into my life. Please, give her the strength to fight this battle. She deserves a chance at a full, happy life." This consummation strengthened his resoluteness and faith in Sonia's recovery. Her survival formerly sounded miraculous, from her original strength in seeking help to chancing him at that precise moment. Opening his eyes, Johnny noticed Miss Abigail watching him with a gentle smile. "You know," she said vocally, "I have always believed that effects be for a reason. Sonia chancing you. It's like a phenomenon." Johnny jounced, a small smile lugging at his lips. "It clearly feels that way," he agreed, "and I am going to do everything in my power to make sure this phenomenon has a happy ending." As the hours ticked by, Johnny set up himself making plans, not just for Sonia's immediate care, but for her future. He began to fantasize ways he could use his coffers and influence to help not just Sonia but other children in analogous situations. Eventually, exhausted but hopeful, Johnny knew he demanded to attend to his neglected scores. He turned to Miss Abigail, his expression serious. "I need to step out for a while to handle some business matters," he explained. "But I will be back as soon as I can. Will you stay with her?" Miss Abigail jounced, understanding in her eyes. "Of course, Mr. Depp. I will be then." Before leaving, Johnny made arrangements with the sanitarium staff to communicate him incontinently if there was any change in Sonia's condition. As Johnny walked down the quiet sanitarium corridor late at night, his studies dallied on Sonia and her fight for survival. The soft hum of medical outfit and the muted exchanges of night staff were the only sounds breaking the stillness. His steps echoed vocally on the polished bottom as he made his way towards the exit. Passing an open glass door, his way faltered. Inside the vocally lit room, he noticed a youthful boy around 12 times old awake in his sanitarium bed. The boy's bald head and thin frame were clear signs of his ongoing battle with cancer. An IV stand stood guard beside the bed, a silent memorial of the constant medical intervention needed. The boy's parents were asleep hard, his mama coiled up on a small lounge, and his father crawled in a staying president. Their prostration was palpable, a silent testament to the grim risk of this fight. Bags under their eyes and solicitude lines etched on their faces spoke volumes about the insomniac nights and endless days of concern. The sight was profoundly moving for Johnny, a stark memorial of the innumerous children fighting analogous battles and the risk it takes on their families. He allowed of Sonia, of her frippery and adaptability, and of all the other children like her who faced similar daunting challenges every day. The boy, noticing Johnny in the doorway, sat in surprise. His eyes widened as recognition actualized, but he stayed silent, careful not to wake his parents. His expression was a blend of unbelief and admiration, as if he could not believe the Hollywood star was standing there looking at him. Johnny, seeing the boy's excitement, smiled vocally. Without a word, he lifted his hand and performed a crisp "Aye, Captain" salutation, channelizing his hand, Jack Sparrow charm. The boy's face broke into a grin, his eyes shining with a admixture of joy and wonder. He responded with a shy, enthusiastic surge, easily excited by the detail, unanticipated hassle. Johnny held the salutation for a moment longer, his expression warm and encouraging, before continuing down the corridor. As he walked down, he reflected on the boy's courage and adaptability. The moment corroborated a painful yet motivating verity. No child should have to fight this battle alone. It renewed his resoluteness to be there for Sonia, icing she now felt abandoned in her trip. This brief commerce had a profound impact on Johnny. He realized that his presence, indeed for just a moment, could bring a spark of joy to a child facing similar delicate circumstances. It was not just about the medical care or the fiscal support. It was about being there, showing up, and letting these stalwart children know they were not alone in their fight. As he reached the sanitarium exit, Johnny broke looking back down the corridor. He allowed about Sonia, about the boy he had just seen, and about all the other children fighting analogous battles. In that moment, he made a silent oath to do more, not just for Sonia, but for all the children he could reach. With a renewed sense of purpose, Johnny stepped out into the cool night air. The experience had changed him, opening his eyes to a world of need he'd preliminarily overlooked. And he was determined to make a difference, starting with one stalwart little girl but not ending there. His mind was formulating plans, ways he could use his influence, his coffers, and his time to bring stopgap and support to children battling illness. 2 days laterally, Johnny set up himself in the middle of a business meeting, agitating forthcoming film systems. Despite his stylish sweats to concentrate, his studies kept drifting back to Sonia and her ongoing treatment. He'd been entering regular updates from Miss Abigail and the sanitarium staff, but the waiting was taking its risk. Suddenly his phone buzzed in his fund. Excusing himself, Johnny stepped out of the conference room to answer the call. His heart contended as he saw Dr. Morrison's name on the screen. "Hello, Doctor." "Morrison," he answered, his voice tense with expectation. "How is she?" Dr. Morrison's voice came through calm but with a hint of excitement. "Johnny, I've good news. Sonia is responding well to the treatment. Her rearmost tests show significant enhancement, and we are planning to wake her up soon." Relief washed over Johnny like a tidal surge. He leaned against the wall, closing his eyes as he reused the news. That's awful," he managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. "When can I see her?" "We will be bringing her out of sedation in many hours, doctor," Morrison replied. "However, you should be suitable to see her when she wakes up. If you can make it then, by also." Without vacillation, Johnny excused himself from the meeting and rushed to the sanitarium. His heart contended with equal corridor excitement and anxiety as he made his way to the sanitarium with his motorist. As they drove, Johnny's mind was filled with studies of Sonia. He flashed back her stalwart smile, her unvarying trust in him, and the strength she had shown throughout this fire. He quietly thanked whatever advanced power had brought them together and given Sonia this chance at life. The megacity passed by in a blur as Johnny's motorist navigated the business. With each afar, Johnny felt a mixture of stopgap and unease structure within him. He knew that Sonia's fight was far from over, but this was a significant step forward. As Johnny's motorist pulled up to the sanitarium entrance, commodity caught his eye that made his heart Gomorrah. A media journalist with a large camera was standing right at the entry, easily on the lookout for a story. Johnny realized that his frequent visits to the sanitarium must have caught someone's attention, and now the press was smelling around for the coming big caption. Taking a deep breath, Johnny steeled himself for what was to come. He knew he could not avoid the journalist entirely, but he was determined to cover Sonia's sequestration and keep her story out of the public eye. As he stepped out of the auto, the journalist's eyes lit up with recognition. The man snappily approached, his camera formally raised and recording. "Mr. Depp," the journalist called out, his voice eager. "What brings you to the sanitarium? Are you then visiting someone? Is everything right?" Johnny dithered, his mind racing as he tried to find a way to redirect the journalist's questions without lying outright. He knew that any hint of a story would only bring further media attention. Commodity Sonia and the sanitarium staff did not need right now. "I am then on particular business," Johnny replied calmly, trying to keep his tone neutral. "I'd appreciate it if you could admire my sequestration at this time." The journalist still wasn't so fluently dissuaded. "Is it affiliated to a new part? Are you probing for a forthcoming film?" Johnny felt a swell of frustration, but he kept his countenance. He knew that losing his temper would only make the situation worse and potentially produce a bigger story. Johnny Depp knew he could not use this now. Sonia demanded peace, not some outrageous media attention gathering outside the sanitarium. He decided to take a different approach. "Here," Johnny said, his voice low and serious. "I know you are just doing your job, but I need you to turn off the camera for a moment. Can we talk off the record?" The cameraman, a youthful man likely in his 20s, dithered for a moment before lowering his camera. Curiosity had replaced the eager look in his eyes. Johnny took a deep breath before continuing. "I am then for a little girl I am helping," he explained, his voice filled with sincerity. "She's veritably sick, and she needs peace and sequestration right now. West, it's important that no bone knows about this. Can you understand that?" The cameraman's expression softened as he heeded to Johnny's words. A look of shame crossed his face, and he jounced sluggishly. I am sorry, Mr. Depp," he said, his voice quiet. "I did not suppose about it that way. You are right. Celebrities need their sequestration too, especially in situations like this." Johnny felt a surge of relief marshland over him. "Thank you for understanding," he said, offering a small smile. "I appreciate your discretion." The cameraman jounced again, more forcefully this time. "I will not report this to my master," he assured Johnny. "No bone will know you are then. I hope the little girl gets better soon." Johnny thanked him formally more before whisking inside the sanitarium, thankful for the youthful man's understanding and hoping that his trust wouldn't be lost. Entering Sonia's room, Johnny was struck by the visible enhancement in her appearance. As indeed unconscious, she looked more peaceful, her color better than it had been since he first met her. The Corsair chapeau rested on her bedside table, alongside the golden coin. He took his place beside her bed, determined to be there when she opened her eyes, just as he promised. Hours passed as he maintained his surveillance, sometimes speaking to her vocally about unborn adventures they'd partake. "You know, first mate Sonia," he rumored, holding her small hand in his. "When you are each better, we'll go on a real adventure. Perhaps we'll sail to a tropical islet, or explore ancient remains. What do you suppose about that?" As he spoke, Johnny noticed a slight flutter of Sonia's eyelids. His heart contended with expectation, but he kept his voice calm and steady. "That is it, love," he encouraged gently. "Time to wake up. Your crew is staying for you." Sluggishly, Sonia's eyes began to open. At first, her aspect was unfocused, confusion apparent on her face. Also, her eyes settled on Johnny, and a small, weak smile spread across her lips. "Captain Jack?" she muttered, her voice coarse from desuetude. Johnny felt a lump form in his throat, overwhelmed with emotion. "Drink back, first mate," he said, his voice thick. "You've been on quite the adventure." Sonia's smile widened slightly. "Did we win?" she asked, her words slightly above a tail. Johnny jounced, blinking back gashes. "We are winning, love. You are the bold corsair I have ever known." As Sonia came more alert, Johnny helped her belt some water and acclimated her bed so she could sit up slightly. He placed the corsair chapeau gently on her head, careful not to disturb any of the medical outfit. "There," he said with a smile. "Now you look like a proper corsair captain." Sonia chortled weakly, the sound music to Johnny's cognizance. It was a small moment, but it filled him with stopgap for her recovery and the future that lay ahead. As Johnny and Sonia were participating a quiet moment, Dr. Morrison entered the room, his face bearing a smile that incontinently set Johnny's heart at ease. The croaker approached Sonia's bed, his eyes twinkling with genuine joy. "Well, well," Dr. Morrison said warmly. "Look who is awake. How are you feeling, Sonia?" Sonia managed a small smile. "Tired," she admitted. "But better, I suppose." Dr. Morrison jounced, also turned to Johnny. "Mr. Depp, could I have a word with you outdoors?" Johnny felt an evanescent stitch of anxiety, but the croaker's relaxed address comforted him. He squeezed Sonia's hand gently. "I will be right back, first mate. Do not go sailing off without me." Once they were in the hallway, Dr. Morrison's smile widened. "I've inconceivable news," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "The treatment has been successful beyond our wildest prospects. While follow-up treatments and drug will be necessary, the worst is over." Johnny felt his knees go weak with relief. He leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths to steady himself. "Are you sure?" he asked, hardly daring to believe it. Dr. Morrison jounced emphatically. "I have no way seen such an advanced case respond so well to treatment. Given the inflexibility of Sonia's cancer, her survival is nothing short of miraculous. In my entire career, I have no way witnessed anything like it." Johnny jounced quietly, his earlier faith verified. He allowed back to that chance meeting outside the hostel, the series of events that led them then. It truly did feel like further than bare coexistence. "What happens now?" Johnny asked, his mind formerly contending with plans for Sonia's future. Dr. Morrison outlined the follow-up care plan, which included regular treatments and drug to ensure the cancer did not return. Johnny incontinently agreed to fund all ongoing care, his commitment to Sonia's health unwavering. "Thank you, Doctor." "Morrison," Johnny said earnestly, shaking the croaker's hand, "for everything you've done." As they re-entered the room, Sonia looked up expectantly. Johnny could not help but smile at the sight of her, still wearing the slightly too large corsair chapeau. "Well, first mate," he said, slipping back into his Jack Sparrow voice. "It seems we have survived the storm. The croaker then says you are going to be just fine." Sonia's eyes widened with stopgap. "Really?" she asked, looking between Johnny and Dr. Morrison. Dr. Morrison jounced, his smile gentle. "Really, Sonia, you've been incredibly stalwart, and your body has responded wonderfully to the treatment. We still have some work to do, but you are going to be okay." As the croaker explained the coming way in simpler terms for Sonia to understand, Johnny watched her face light up with joy and relief. He felt a profound sense of gratefulness marshland over him. knowing that this stalwart little girl would now have the chance to grow up, to have the adventures and jests she merited. Johnny sat beside Sonia, who was propped up in her sanitarium bed, her corsair chapeau perched jauntily on her head. "What do you say we surprise your crew?" he asked with a smile, pulling out his phone. Sonia's eyes lit up with excitement. "Can we really? I miss them so much." Johnny jounced, telephoning the number for the orphanage. After a brief discussion with Miss Abigail to set up the surprise, he switched to videotape call mode and angled the phone so both he and Sonia were in frame. The screen filled with the familiar face of Mr. Peter, one of the workers at the orphanage. Behind him, a group of children crowded in, their excitement discovering over as they gestured and called out, "Sonia!" Sonia beamed, her voice steady as she said, "Hi everyone, I miss you all, so important." The children cheered, holding up hand-drawn signs with dispatches like, "We love you, Sonia, and our Corsair idol." Mr. Peter smiled warmly, his gratefulness clear. "Sonia, you've shown us all what courage looks like, and Mr. Depp, thank you for everything." Johnny, switching to his Captain Jack Sparrow voice, beamed and said, "Hear up, you scallywags. This stalwart Corsair is your finest mate, and she will be back at the helm in no time." The children chortled and cheered, peppering Sonia with questions about her adventures and when she would be coming home. Sonia answered as stylish she could, her face glowing with happiness at seeing her musketeers. As the call went on, Johnny noticed Sonia starting to tire, though she was easily trying to hide it. He gently interposed. "Each right. Crew, I suppose it's time for our stalwart first mate to get some rest, but we'll talk again soon. Aye?" The children reluctantly said their farewells, each one telling Sonia how important they missed her and could not stay for her return. As the screen went dark, Johnny looked at Sonia, his voice soft. "You've got quite the crew, love. They'll always be with you." Sonia jounced, clinging her Corsair coin with determination. "And so will you, Captain Jack." Johnny felt a lump form in his throat at her words. "Always, Sonia. Always." As Sonia settled back against her pillows, easily exhausted but happy, Johnny could not help but feel a sense of absoluteness. He'd started this trip allowing he was helping a little girl. But in reality, Sonia had given him commodity priceless, a memorial of what truly signified in life. Dr. Morrison returned latterly that day to explain the path ahead, regular checkups, drug and monitoring, to ensure Sonia remained cancer-free. Johnny heeded attentively, mentally noting every detail. "We will need to keep a close eye on her for the coming many months, Doctor," Morrison explained. "The treatment was successful, but we want to make sure there is no rush, and she will need to come in for checkups every 2 weeks originally. Also, we'll gradationally space them out if everything looks good." Johnny jounced, his expression serious. "Whatever she needs, Doctor, I want to make sure she has the stylish care possible." Dr. Morrison smiled, easily impressed by Johnny's fidelity. "She's lucky to have you in her corner, Mr. Departamento. Not numerous children in her situation have this kind of support." As the croaker continued outlining the care plan, Johnny's mind began to wander. He allowed about all the other children like Sonia, facing battles against illness without the coffers or support they demanded. An idea began to form in his mind. Once Dr. Morrison had finished and left the room, Johnny turned to Miss Abigail, who had been still hearkening to the discussion. "Miss Abigail," he began, his voice filled with determination, "I want to do further. Not just for Sonia, but for other children like her." Miss Abigail looked at him curiously. "What do you mean, Mr. Depp?" Johnny took a deep breath before continuing. "I want to set up a foundation, one that helps children with serious ails get the treatment they need, anyhow of their fiscal situation. And I want to start by perfecting conditions at your orphanage, better medical care, further coffers, whatever you need." Miss Abigail's eyes widened in surprise. "Mr. Depp, that is incredibly generous, but are you sure? It's a huge undertaking." Johnny jounced forcefully. "I am sure Sonia has shown me that there is so much further I could be doing with my coffers. This is just the morning." As they bandied the possibilities, Johnny felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that his life would return to its usual excited pace, but a part of his heart would always belong to this small Corsair who had tutored him about true courage, faith, and the power of no way giving up. Sonia slept peacefully, her Corsair coin gripped in one hand, her other holding Johnny's. It was the important image of the doubtful but profound bond formed between a Hollywood star and a stalwart little girl who refused to give up. Johnny watched over her, his mind filled with plans for the future, not just for Sonia, but for all the children he hoped to help. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them, inspired by the frippery of one small girl. As Johnny Depp took Sonia's hand, determination and hope filled the room. Despite the overwhelming challenges ahead, his unwavering commitment to saving her life proved that kindness, courage, and compassion could shine through even in the darkest moments. This is not just a story of a Hollywood star. It's a story of humanity, resilience, and the extraordinary power of believing in a better tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to JD Relatives for more inspiring stories.